welcome everybody to the classes of the 2000s Roundtable. This is our final roundtable that we're going to be doing as part of our 75th anniversary look back. I think we should start. We'll start over right here. If you'll tell us your name and your class year, we'll just go around.
Bill Neuhoff, class of 2000.
Mickey Wittum, class of 2005.
J.R. Koeijmans, class of 2004.
Kenny Halloran, class of 2004.
Omar Jenkins, class of 2000.
Bobby Morgan, class of 2003.
Buck O'Brien, class of 2007.
Fantastic. I'm Sean McMullen, your alumni director, class of 96. To my right is our most tenured professor, Sheryl. So once again, thank you guys for coming. So some of you had some interesting paths to get here. So was Jesuit always the target for you and your family?
I don't think I had a choice.
Yeah.
It was, this is where you're going and we'll figure it out. I don't think I applied anywhere else or was let to apply anywhere else.
Yeah, I can't imagine what the consequences would have been had I been rejected by Jesuit.
Yeah, I had it different. When we moved here, I started at St. Rita in 3rd grade, and being next door to Jesuit, that was the only school I even knew about, right? My mind was so narrow, I just didn't even think about it. We would come over here to the football games, started in 5th grade, and I didn't think there was any other school out there that I was supposed to go to until I had to go to summer school. And then I had Oglesby as my teacher, and it was just, he asked me, do you even want to go here? And I said, I don't even know. And of course, by the time I got home, he had already called my dad. And my dad's like, Omar, Mr. Oglesby said you didn't know if you wanted to go there. And that was probably the first time I had started to be honest with my parents about that stuff. But in the end, it worked out. So.
I think there's something just so great. My first memory was the 50th anniversary. Okay. I had the blue hat with the yellow writing, and I didn't have a choice. I was going to Jesuit. It's like a lot of us. But I developed that choice. It became like, this is why I came here. This is why I wanted to be here. My boys, they won't have a choice, but, I'll pretend to give them a choice. And, it's just important because it does something to you. It's more than a high school. It's more than just an education. It's it's just greatness.
Yeah, you sort of get tricked into wanting to go here.
Right.
Sort of, your mind, you trick yourself into really wanting to go here, even though like for me growing up, it's funny, Omar mentions going to football games. Well, for me, I was growing up to watch Omar play, like him and all his peers. So those are my earliest memories of Jesuit, and what it means to go to Jesuit was watching him play. And I'm sure in my dad's head, he's like, my son doesn't have a choice. But going to all those games, in my own head, I was like, I have to go here.
Yeah, for me, I kind of got a little bit of a different view on it, being I've got dad, uncles, great uncle went here in the 40s, but I'm 11 years older than my brother, and so when he went here, it's very different. But the great thing about it is the same experience and a little bit of a different package. I think that is a very cool thing that we can go back in the 2010 era, early 2000s. And in the 70s, a very similar experience that we all had.
That's great. One of the things that when we talk to you guys, and thank you so much for sharing everything so far, it's been eye-opening as to how you got to Jesuit, that actually helps us with our archives and really looking is the formation of the student groups. So let's spend a few minutes talking about what you guys did when you were here. What were you involved in?
Athletics is the only reason why I ended up at Jesuit, I guess I can say. Against everyone else's grain, I came fighting and screaming. I did not want to be here. I had a very strong group of friends that were in Flower Mound going to public school. I really wanted to be with them. I promised my father I would give it a year. That year turned into 4, thankfully. But yeah, athletics, football, wrestling, track. I really enjoyed being in the arts as well. The art classes we have here have had probably a more lasting impact than some of the educational classes as far as the pottery goes. That's something that I still kind of seek out and try to stay involved in. Just trying to find places I can throw clay.
I still have a bowl and use it that I made in
You do?
Mr. Oak's class. Yeah.
There's a lot of guys from our class. They all some of the guys still have potter's wheel and everything still. I'll say for mine, when I was here, I played soccer. It's kind of a tradition for my family. My dad and uncle played here. My grandfather actually immigrated here from Holland, the Netherlands. and he was an assistant coach here when soccer was, nobody had heard of soccer in the mid '70s. It was kind of new, and so he was a volunteer coach up here with my dad and my uncle on the team in the mid '70s. Now our team is just fantastic. We're great every year. My year we were very good. Charlie DeLong's been the coach for a long time and good mentor to all of us. Charlie actually coached my dad, not at Jesuit, but on his club team in Dallas back in the mid '70s. And so then when I came here, it was just a natural progression. I already kind of knew the coaches a little bit, and a lot of fun. Some of my best memories here were definitely playing soccer, and it's a very cool tradition.
I was involved at an organization called JBA, which is Jesuit Basketball Association. And when I was about a freshman, I had a teacher, Jason Smola, who was only about 4 or 5 years older than us, felt like at the time. And he liked playing basketball, and we liked playing basketball. So on Saturday mornings, we'd come up here and just shoot around, and that kind of led into JBA. Sophomore year, we all started this league where you'd have 10 teams, and you'd have owners, and you'd draft players. It felt like you're in the NBA, and I know we all tried out for the basketball team every year and could never make it, so it was great that you could just fall back on that, and you'd always have intramurals or JBA. That even if you couldn't make the basketball team, there was always something you could do to stay active.
That's really cool. JBA.
I don't think my club that I started ever lasted that long. I think it lasted 2 years. Started it when I was a senior. Mr. Garrison was the faculty sponsor because we had to have one. I don't know if that's still the case. It was the UFO, the Ultimate Frisbee Organization, and we used to play before they put the fence up at the Hockaday Fields. That's where we played, so maybe that's why they put up the fences. I don't know. It's unfortunate, but it's okay. And I think that Matt Upton from 01 or 02 took it up the next 2 years, and then it crushed. So I'm glad to hear that yours was so well, because mine was just a bunch of goofy guys throwing the frisbee around. And
Hoping the girls at Hockaday would see you.
yeah,
That's exactly.
pretty much.
Yeah, I would say for me, the just Jesuit way of life, mission, being a man for others, is kind of what stuck with me. Whenever I left here, I knew that I wanted to go to a Jesuit college or university, which I ended up doing. I went to Holy Cross, which is in Worcester, Mass, because I wanted to, be exposed to that and continue to grow in that way of life when I went off to college. And even to this day, try to stay connected to some of the Jesuits that were here. When I was here, unfortunately, guys like Father Sheryl, who's recently passed away, but got to go to New Orleans and visit with him a couple times. Guys like Patty Huff, who's in Tampa Jesuit now. He's an assistant principal there, and he's doing my wedding in October. So trying to stay connected to Jesuits and as much as I can.
That's interesting. Now, part of this group also, Father Martinez was in here somewhere. Did you all have a relationship with TJ? Any of you?
I was pretty close to TJ over the years. The same thing, that connection. I mean, that man was the epitome of Jesuit because he was so passionate. And there was a quote about him, a comment that flashed before us because it was really this ball of fire that came through. And that impact, I think the Wednesday senior mission really just got even bigger because it was more than just us doing community service graduate. It was the social justice. It was the larger thought. And that's what I found most enjoyable here. I kind of, I had a little baseball career. I had a little Lone Rangers, which Dave Williams took and made awesome. I think I slowed him down in the process. And, it's that you can come here, you can be part of everything and anything, and you take home that social justice, that man for others, just that's what it is about. Whatever you did here, whatever club, in the end, you're striving for the same goal, be man for others.
You were being modest there. You were the president of the Lone Rangers. So.
I was president of the Lone Rangers for that last year. That was really when it took. My brother actually jumped on the Lone Rangers, and the photos. It really, David Williams just made that so great. But that club really got just great, and that it started with football. And when I was there, it was really just football. We made banners, and by the end of it, it was every sport, every event became awesome. and so it was cool to be part of it and watch it grow.
I found I moved 4 months ago, and I was cleaning through stuff, and I found an old handwritten thank you card that TJ had given me, and I guess that he had written that for everyone in the whole class. You know, I guess he had sat down after all of our community service was done at the end of the year and thanked everybody for their community service. And I didn't do more than anyone else, so it wasn't like I got one and other people. So he must have written 250 individually handwritten cards. This one made mention of, you know, just very sweet, very nice card talking about, you know, my potential and let people see your smile and stuff like that. Very nice stuff, very nice man.
That's amazing. Omar, tell me what you did while you were in your 4 years at Jesuit.
Oh man, not as many as I should have. I'll tell you that. But you know, obviously, athletics was a big part of my time here. But you know, academics was really big too, because it was the first time ever that I sat down and actually wanted to do my homework, and did my homework, and I made the honor roll every single quarter and semester, and it was I grew up a lot that way compared to my grade school years, and I didn't get treated any different, which is awesome, and I love that aspect about it. And
I remember trying to find you on the Bengals roster.
Vikings.
Vikings.
Yeah. They released me quick, cut me. You have to catch it at the right time, right? Because they brought me in, then they cut me, then they brought me back, and then they cut me again. So I was like,
I was fortunate enough. I did get to see you on the roster of the Vikings because being a Rita, you know, a Spartan, I was like, I got to cheer as a Spartan and a Ranger. And so then I would, you know, in the internet, you had to wait for dial-up, but I got to see it.
I was lucky. I was there long enough to get a rookie card, and so they gave me a whole package of rookie cards, and I think I only have like 6 of them left. So it's like I got 3 boys. They're getting 3 of them. They're all accounted for. So that was pretty special.
I kind of share some of the same Bobby and Buck moments. I went to St. Rita as well, Jesuit, and then I was a big Notre Dame fan as well. So I didn't want to scare Omar when he walked in, but I was a big fan growing up. And I remember sophomore year of high school, my answering machine was a 67-yard touchdown. Brady Quinn to Omar Jenkins.
That's awesome. Yes.
All my friends would call me and be like,
Why? Freak him out.
to really freak him out, my screen name was Oh My Omar 80 on AOL. So
Well, hey, you know, guys, I think
the restraining order, restraining order is over. So I guess now it's time I can be around Omar again.
That's
I know
pride.
that game. That had to be the Navy game.
Yeah, it was.
When we were in Baltimore.
You had 2 big catches that game.
We have a new face. Would you
Yes.
introduce yourself? Tell us your class year.
Luiz, Araiza, class of 04.
Glad to have you, sir.
Yeah.
Feel free when we get into a topic you want to share, jump on in. Now, one of the names that's floated around a couple times is Frank Halloran, and he's the namesake of our wrestling classic every year now. So that's your father, and I know 2 of you at least wrestled for him. What was it like to wrestle for your dad and go to school here when he was one of the teachers and coaches?
Man, I'll start by reiterating something Omar said, which was, you know, not treating anyone special. I think I tried really hard to take a back role in some things because I didn't want to be seen as, you know, just a faculty brat that was getting special treatment for X, Y, and Z, and athletics were, of course, involved in this. A lot of ups and downs to it. You know, we spent 2.5 hours in a car every day driving from Flower Mound to Dallas. So a lot of silent stern drives when things were not great. But I also had a lot of time to learn more about him, probably than I would have any other time in my life. So that was really eye-opening as well. But yeah, going to the Ranger Classic now is also a very special event now that it has my father's name, and I get to wear a shirt that says that, and I get a box of them and give them out to old teammates and family members, and everyone loves to receive those things, and I wear it with a lot of pride.
That's awesome.
Wrestling for Frank was amazing. Not only could he take you to town, I mean, he'd spit you out and do it again. I mean, he was an amazing wrestler. I think anybody could attest to that. But he was a great man. We're a little less without him. Sorry about that, kid.
No, it's all right. Thank you. But now the wrestling room honors your father, the Neuhoffs.
Beautiful facility. The young men are very lucky. It's continued to go up. Now, one of the things that happened in this era that's, I know Omar can probably speak to the beforehand, and you guys can speak to the after, is we joined the UIL. Tell us about what it was like to be kind of in that transition. What was it like when Jesuit became part of the UIL?
I wish I was here when they were part of the UIL. Part of the weirdness about it was when you looked at our schedule, we only played 3 private schools every year anyway. So I didn't understand why everyone made a big deal out of it. And so you look at the years before then, especially with football, and I mean, we were barnstormers. I remember having to play Coppell, and then, okay, well, we got to go play Houston Strake Jesuit. We got to go play St. Thomas. And it's like, okay, we got to go down there. So we were just doing anything and everything we could to fill our schedule, which I liked, but we never got to compete for that UIL championship, which they do now.
So on the soccer team, we were the first team to have a playoff game, a UIL playoff game, and that was a lot of fun. That was really cool because my first 3 years here, we would play games for like no purpose, really. There was no playoffs, there's nothing like that. So our senior year was a really big deal to have the playoffs. And then the first playoff game was here against R.L. Turner, and soccer doesn't get a huge crowd, but for that game, we had a huge crowd. We ended up beating them 4-0, 5-0, something like that. And so I think that was the first time we won something in the UIL playoffs.
I think it was the emptiness of the season. Like I think I had the magic of 3 years. We had I think 01 was the last year, right? So we had, or it was 2000 was the last year at TCIL. So the baseball team had one chance at it, and we lost a streak. But every year after that was empty. And I was in college, actually. I had playing in college, and I remember the baseball, like, there was a chance we could go in the playoffs, and I was so excited. My teammates were like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "My high school team's going to go to the playoffs." And they're like, "What's the big deal?" Just from a visitor, like looking online, watching from 800 miles away to see standings and the chance for Jesuit to compete on that level, it was just great.
We had mentioned earlier Father Martinez, and several of you were talking about your community service. That program over the decades went from a pet project to an organized structure. And Father Martinez, TJ, did a wonderful job with that. Where did you guys do your service? And tell us a little bit about what that meant to your academic career, Jesuit.
I did mine at the Notre Dame school. So it was mainly autistic and kids with Down syndrome. And that was my first exposure to that population. But it's something that I carried on all through college. Every year I took a community service class, and I got credits for it. But it's something that I sought out and I really wanted to do. So I would have never have gotten involved in that type of service had it not been for Jesuit. And I think it really influenced my decision to do the Peace Corps after college as well, to kind of continue down that road, seek out areas where one person can actually make a difference.
I did my community service at Jonathan's Place, which is a temporary housing for families that had maybe had some sort of domestic violence or something that caused their kids to go to Jonathan's Place for a little bit. And it was a great experience. I went with 2 other guys, Barrett Cook and Ryan Beaupre, and we every Wednesday went there, and it would be mainly us outside playing basketball and soccer and everything with them, and it was a very, very fulfilling experience. It was an absolute blast. We loved it.
My service project was Habitat for Humanity. Every Wednesday we'd drive down to Oak Cliff and build different parts that they would then assemble on Saturdays at the actual sites. But I'd say one of the lasting memories was just those trips down there with my classmates. I think there were 6 or 7 of us, and they were all students that I didn't really hang out with too much, but by the end of the year, they were some of my best friends, and I still stay in contact with them. And I'm also a little worried about all those houses that we built because I'm not quite sure we knew what we were doing.
I respect that.
That's very funny. I remember doing community service with Jesus. We taught, it was a reading and critical thinking class at a lower income school, but and that was the Wednesday, that took care of like 75 of our 100 hours we had to get. But I sought community service everywhere I could get it. I did stuff with Jeff Schneider and a group called the Paws Patrol, where we put on giant animal costumes and went to homeless shelters at Christmas and Valentine's Day and handed out presents to kids. I don't think going up to senior year, you hear about it, and you're like, what is that? But like actually doing it, it was like, this is pretty cool.
I was also at the Notre Dame school, which was great, and a lot of my lasting memories are car trips to and from, but I think the biggest thing for me was sort of just altering my frame of mind as far as there being a whole world out there. And I grew up in this bubble of St. Rita and Jesuit and Catholic school, and you sort of don't even realize it. And even at the time when you're doing it, you don't even realize it until kind of when I get to college and I sought out those different volunteer opportunities. You really actually have to work for those. So that's definitely, I think, what it did for me. And even to this day, trying to seek out those opportunities, and I can trace that back to, Wednesday community service. So.
I had a probably immature approach to mine. I had a bunch of surgeries when I was a kid at Children's, and kind of felt like, oh, I'm just going to go and give my community service. I'm going to check my time card. And as I got there, it kind of planted the seed that although I'm one person and how much good I can do, the people around me, because it's an ER, I mean, they're doctors and physicians and nurses, they're making the impact, and that community they serve is really underprivileged, and it kind of planted a seed that I wouldn't recognize for years later to go back and have that impact, to do that same thing that they're doing. And it's kind of funny, I just realized I did my service there and now I work there, and I've worked there for 5 years, and it's like, that definitely played a role. I, like everyone else, the drives there, the freedom, and really the big thing were the shirts. Because I think it was probably the first year with TJ instituted the shirts. Mine were black with gold. Yeah, the polos. And it was like, St. Ignatius, we're going to light the world on fire in our, polos. It was something different. And you could see us leave, and they're going to go set the world on fire through service. It's just going to happen. And it's kind of cool. I was really, in this moment, sat down, I was like, man, I serviced there. Is that why I worked there? I guess. Is that my lighting the world on fire? I guess so. Cool. Well, don't you know?
I did my service at Mi Escuelita, which is a little school right off the tollway in Oak Lawn. And it's crazy when I look back and think about the time, because literally previously I just thought I was playing with these preschoolers and kindergartners. I'd go on the playground and play. But then when you think about what you were doing and what being there actually meant to these kids, and you start to think about just the littlest thing that makes them happy. And for me, I now remember the teacher pulling me aside and asking me if I would sit down and eat lunch with these kids. And to sit down in the little desk and squeeze in there, and I'm now imagining and seeing the smile on their faces that, oh my God, I can't believe he's sitting and eating lunch with us. And, it's the joy that you could bring them, because like she told me and like we knew, sometimes this was the only meal that they would have for that entire day.
The really cool part of community service was coming back and talking to everyone else and talk about their experiences. And the opinions and experience were so varied. It was just so rich. There's so much stuff going on there. It opened me up to community service and just how great it felt to give back to community. And so going to college and even to now, always be active in a nonprofit or volunteering in some sort of way, wherever I am.
Let's move into the classroom. We all went to high school here. We got to talk about the academic section of this, right? We've gotten into a little bit of sports, a little bit of community service. Let's talk about it especially with the great teacher like I have to my right here. What were the hard ones? What were the hard classes that you guys were so looking forward to going to, and what were the ones you just couldn't wait to avoid? Let's talk about that a little bit.
I always remember my favorite classes were also my most challenging ones. Michael Deegan's class I think I learned more in that class in terms of writing than I ever learned in college or any other class at Jesuit. And then Dia Oaks, her economics class, it's always one of my favorite classes to go to, because she could dish it just as easily as, having to deal with a classroom of high school guys. I can't even imagine how that would be, but if there was anyone built for it, she was great. Yeah, I love that class.
It was Bob Lanier. Talking about a class. I still remember like parts of it. His lectures, the way he would bring it in real world. I never really was scared. I dodged death row. And I dodged Father Leininger. So I got through Jesuit with fairly easy, I think, classes. But the other class was probably, I think it was freshman. It's Father Sesson. Setzer, right? Yeah. Rest in peace. He died a couple years ago. And I think it was a freshman. And he walks in 5 minutes late to class. And we were all joking. We get to leave. And he goes, "Shit happens." And I'm like, dude, this priest just cussed at us. Like, it was amazing. And I had a lot. It was fun. Class was always fun.
I had Mr. Lanier too, and it was on the first day. Maybe I was a little overwhelmed or something. I came in because he taught my dad too, and so like the first minute right as he walked in, he says, "There are Koeijmans in here," and I didn't say anything. I guess I was on their plan. I was not paying attention, and then probably 10 minutes later, he does roll, and I say, "Here." He goes, "Where the hell were you 10 minutes ago?" It was like the first 10 minutes of class I'd ever had at Jesuit. So I love that class, the Bug Project and everything. Really liked, I liked Coach Wunderlich. I liked Coach Gunst. I really liked Mr. Shepard. He was probably like 3 years older than me at the time. It was his first year, and so he was not that much older than me, and that was a very, very different kind of cool experience in his class. But yeah, I remember a lot of the really, really nice teachers. Mr. McGee was an awesome teacher. Got me really interested in some of the books we were reading, and actually I went and learned a little bit how to play guitar from him too after class. So I'm learning more than just the English or the literature during class.
I think that's one of the coolest things about the student-teacher experience here. You get a little hint of teachers as real people, as opposed to in grade school where it was you get there at 7:30, you leave at 3:30, and that's it. You don't want to see them, you don't want to hear anything else from them. But here, it's a little different in the sense that hey, meet me in the senior lounge or junior lounge and teach me how to play guitar, right?
For me, one of the standouts was, everyone's mentioned Mr. Lanier. I agree. But Coach Perry, I think he got Trig, he taught Trig second year. He was the track and coach also. He was just an amazing teacher, and I knew he was an amazing coach also. So, I wish, I kept in touch with him for a couple of years. I haven't kept in touch with him recently, but I remember just prime example of just a great man, both inside the classroom and outside with sports.
Unfortunately, I spent more time with Mr. Donahue and Mr. Hanlon than in the classrooms. So, and really, that's one guy that I can't imagine Jesuit functioning without, but it's found a way, is Mr. Donahue. Whenever I think of my time here, he is one of the first people that pops into my mind, and I can remember his voice. And I can't believe y'all don't have like a doll that has his voice recorded. Like,
Yeah.
Mr. Your tie, sir. Something like that. You really need that. I keep up with Mr. Donahue. He actually came and visited me at work a couple months ago, and we go and have barbecue every now and then. And it's weird how the disciplinary figure has become more of a role model, and I've learned a lot from him.
Do you remember when the bells wouldn't work and he would be the bells? He would just walk down the hallway yelling bells, bells, and his voice would carry so far that even the second floor would know it's time to change class.
But do y'all remember later on when he let his hair grow out a little bit? I thought the world ended. I thought something had traumatized something. We were spinning the wrong way or whatever on the Earth's axis. I didn't know what to do. It's crazy.
I think of the academic classes we took. I remember all 4 of my English teachers in consecutive order. I remember Mr. Cooley, George Coolin, who's a basketball coach, because we watched Blazing Saddles to discuss satire and irony. Going as a freshman, you're like, this is the best class ever. I mean, it's Blazing Saddles. And then Mr. McDaniel, there's not much else to say there. I mean, he's an amazing teacher. He read The Great Gatsby, and then for Mr. Garrison, it was the Canterbury Tales. And then I remember asking Miss Rowe, I was in a different place, I'd say spiritually and religiously then, that I was having a hard time reading a book. And I asked you, could I read a different book because I'm having a hard time reading this? And she goes, I think you're strong enough to read it, and so is your faith. And that's what I remember, my 4 English teachers.
I liked the relationship that we got to form. I don't know how other schools, no, I don't have very other experience with high schools. I didn't volunteer, and I'm not sure how open door policy, but our, instructors, they all have offices. And you would go to them when you needed help, but you get that office is, not just a place where they teach, it's kind of get a little bit of their life. I had Tom Garrison twice, freshman and junior, I think. And that's just special. Carries on today, I see Tom, I watched him grow from afar to become the second lay principal ever, which is really still historic. And, it's just really cool that relationship we carry on, doesn't end.
I forgot to mention that, it was very cool when you had a teacher that was also your coach. So I had David Williams, Coach Williams, and that was a very cool experience because it was a guy kind of in my shoes, just 7-8 years down the road, being that he was a soccer player here, went and played soccer in college, and then came back and, wanted to give back to the school. And he was just extremely passionate about the team and about soccer. And he was also very passionate about, what we were learning.
I think something that, I don't know if it's unique to Jesuit. To me, it's very special, and I don't know that I've heard of it any other place, but the number of alumni that come back and teach and what that says about the teacher-student relationship. And guys like Tim Murphy and Ian Berry, who was in my class, they come back and teach, and 2 of my brothers did the ASC program, and you always want to be connected in any way you can.
I wanted to add, going back to classroom and teachers, TJ Martinez, I think our senior year, he taught for the first time social justice. And that was just an amazing classroom experience. But what I remember the most is, I think when I really started to talk to him more and just get to know him, is he always had his office door open, and he always had Empire Strikes Back playing on his huge TV. Do you remember? There was always someone putting the video cassette in there and playing Empire Strikes Back. And he would not mind. He would just let anyone watch Empire Strikes Back. But, TJ was just an amazing teacher and always had his door open to the students.
So a few of you have also joked a little bit about some discipline.
Kenny?
I will say I still have dreams about forgetting a tie or a belt, or like not having my blazer, and I pull up to school and I'm running around trying to find a tie, and then I'll wake up and I'm like, I'm 32 years old, what in the heck? You don't need to find a tie, man, relax. But it really gets you going.
We're all very well dressed now, though. We always have our belts and collar stays in. Get very antsy in the morning if belt and collar stays.
I don't know about you, but I can still tie a tie on a dead sprint, and it's going to be perfect.
I just remember getting out of Jesuit and realizing it wasn't commonplace to try and roll your dress shirt, the sleeves up as far as you possibly could. Fred Donahue way. I guess that's not normal practice.
What were the biggest changes that you guys saw in your years? Obviously, as seniors, you get to wear your own jacket, right? So did y'all have any crazy jacket stories from your senior year? Or?
I had one jacket that was I had 2. One was like an old school 70s like corduroy with patches on it. I thought that was very popular for our time. And then I also bought one that was like sparkled, like it like gave light off of it. Like the second day I wore it, like you absolutely cannot wear that thing again. Glad they told me that.
I had a great double-breasted plaid from the thrift store over off Preston. And it was awesome. It was beautiful. I discovered it because we were shopping for blazers at the thrift store, and I mean, it was perfectly fit for me. It's like God put it there to wear to Jesuit, and I think the blazer that was symbolic of your senior year. You know, your hair would go crazy, and you wore a crazy blazer because you worked so hard to get there, and that was like you couldn't wait till homecoming when you had to start wearing it.
I had a camel colored one with elbow patches. That was my every day. I don't think it went with any piece of clothing I ever wore, but I wore that camel colored fuzzy blazer every day. It was awesome.
I almost wore mine tonight. The one I had was my grandfather's, and it was just a huge black and white tweed one. And I just wore it because you could slip it on and use it as a blanket and sleep and use it as a pillow. And then 10 years later, I was looking through my closet at home, and I pulled it out, and I was like, this is a nice coat. And I actually went and got it tailored. And I wear it, like, to work functions. And I was trying it on. I was like, it's a little too hot out. I'm not going to wear a coat. That's ridiculous. But it's a nice coat. I still wear it.
One of my favorite times as a student. Tell me about y'all's Ranger Day. What was it all about? What did you look forward to the most? Tell me about it.
My senior year, I was a big brother, and I was one of the guys in the little carriage, and I helped them build it. But I'm the farthest thing from an engineer, and it proved to be true. Like immediately, we took off. I mean, it had been within 10 yards. The whole thing shuts down, and I'd fall off. They just kind of stop and stand there. We get last place. But that was always a blast. I love when everybody would get into the gym, and you'd have all classes in there, and the seniors would do something funny. And like one time I don't know which classes they were, maybe 2 ahead of me. They brought a guy in like he was Hannibal Lecter with a little thing on his face. I think they brought groups in like he was like a Roman emperor type thing, like lifting him up like on the little pallet. It was creative, you know. You got to do fun, creative things, and that was just a blast.
The best part was the basketball games.
Yeah.
Because always freshman against senior year. And when you're a freshman, there's like no hope, of course. You learn that immediately. And so you look forward to your senior year because you're like, we're going to win. And it just, again, the creativity of just, it's like, okay.
I remember senior year, and one of the pictures I saw in there was Omar Niamatali, one of our track star athletes for Omar and I's year. He and I were super WWF fans in high school. I don't know why, but it was just awesome. And remember that week of Ranger Days, the Ultimate Warrior came back, and so we painted our faces in the Ultimate Warrior mask. And I found the picture, and it's actually in the 2000 book. And I photoed it, and I was like, dude, you got to check this out. And then
They had the car smash. They used to do the car smash.
oh yes,
Oh my god, that was straight like Street Fighter video game in my mind, thinking I'm going to destroy this thing, and it never happened. So you just
Oh, that was so sad, yeah.
take that baseball bat, and it's like ding.
yeah,
You're like, I had this.
that was it.
Tell me a little bit about your senior pranks. A couple of you alluded to it. How did that look?
We had a very successful senior skip day. And I believe there was only like 5 or 6 seniors, and it was on a Friday, so we had either a church or a mass service, and there was just no one there. And then we were told if we did an additional prank,
Yes.
that was, you're not going to be
That's too
walking
much.
across the
Yeah.
stage. Yeah, y'all really made us
Too
look
much.
bad that day. So that was our only prank we got to pull.
Ours was a skip day. That we were on the heels of the toilet paper incident, which you guys couldn't get to here in a little bit.
And everybody keeps mentioning the toilet paper incident. I just thought it snowed in May. I don't know who instigated it for our class, but they counted trees, all trees. There were I guess you'd call them commando teams with ladders. The trees in the courtyards got gotten. There were several people who did get busted, and all of us cleaned up. That was, but it was pulling up to Jesuit that next morning. It looked like it snowed. Yeah, that was fun.
The library was always a target. Not even just on prank day. I mean, it was always a target. We didn't do a main prank, but I mean, we had one right around then that, you know, someone went and caught a fish, and then they sat in the first seat right there, put it under the seat cushion, and then like everyone in the senior class took a turn sitting in that just to smash that fish even more. So you'd see lines of kids coming in, sitting down for 1 second, holding a book up, looking at it, then sitting, next guy come in and sit in it and sit in it as we keep going, which is just such a jerk thing to do. I can't believe it.
What class was the one that put the dead, was it, I think it might have been my class, they put the dead fish in a lot of the bags they collected on a Friday. And all those bags had to go to Tom Hanlon's office and sit for the weekend. And so there's a bunch of dead fish sitting, I swear it was my class, but unfortunately we're bored and intelligent, and that's really dangerous.
There's potential though. That's probably multiple classes.
The fish always have to come back.
Did you guys, and I ask this because it's definitely a phase to where our current students are, if you all were athletic or in the band or anything, did you wear your letter jacket?
That was a good pillow.
Yeah.
I remember liking wearing it on game day. You know, that was a big thing, you know, game day, because it also got people talking about the game that night. It built more camaraderie for the game. I think that mixed with the Lone Rangers built more of an atmosphere of, oh, okay, we've got a game tonight. This is a big deal.
I think I wore mine every day. It took me so long to get one. You know, my dad wore one for a long time, and I just couldn't wait to put it on. There were no state titles, because, you know, like, my dad's is like titles and basketball and all these loaded ones, and I'm like, I got just a little spot right here and one little line. By God, that line is really hard to get.
I used to look at my brothers with a lot of reverence, just before I even got one. Then I think the first time I got the jacket with like the first patch, I think I wore it. But I just remember before I got here, seeing my brother with his, that was a big deal.
Tell me what your relationship as your class was with the girls' schools in town. Where's your class type with Ursuline?
For us, I mean, I think it was majority Ursuline. I didn't know anybody else from Hockaday or any other schools, really. It was all 100% Ursuline. I mean, all the girls that were in my class went to Ursuline. I know my dad and my mom dated when they were at Jesuit Ursuline, so it's just like a long-standing tradition thing. I think you go there and you're excited to meet Ursuline girls, even though the same girls that you knew in middle school. But
My wife went to Ursuline. She's class of 02, so she's younger than me.
Yeah, I'm marrying an Ursuline girl, and my parents Jesuit Ursuline, and two of my brothers are married to Ursuline girls. I'm sure there are other uncles and aunts that are Jesuit Ursuline, so it's just sort of, you don't even think about it, but yeah, it's so prevalent.
I felt like they were classmates, even though they weren't classmates. We heard their stories of their teachers, and, you know, again, I got here at like 6:30, 7 in the morning, so there's nothing to do, and the band girls would come over, and so it'd be a girl on Jesuit campus, so God knows there's 80 of us sitting over there hanging out.
But it's crazy how word would spread when a girl was on campus. For us to not have cell phones back in the day, I mean, literally, I remember, just a club would come in, and it'd be girls, and everyone would know, well, where are they? And then they're all the way on the back office over there. Well, you know, I gotta walk that way anyway, so let me just go see. I don't mean to say,
There was
no matter-
always a lot more
no matter
guys there
what time.
that they had to be there. I gotta go study, and that's the quietest place.
Yeah.
So guys, one of the things that makes y'all such a unique group is you're the youngest era, besides closest to our current students. As you've transitioned from a Jesuit student to a college student, maybe a master's program, but then into professionalism, what has Jesuit's impact been in that process on you?
I can tell. I mean, I tell my story about Jesuit all the time, And for me, I didn't know if Jesuit was where I wanted to be when I came out of grade school. And to give y'all history before that, I never made honor roll. Hell, if I got a B plus, I was excited, right? So then coming in to into ninth grade, I don't know what happened. Something clicked. That first, I'll never forget it. That first quarter, when I got my report card, my grade point average was 3.83. I've never had a grade point average that high in my life. It was all A's and one B plus. And to go home and show it to my parents was the most amazing thing ever. The principles that Jesuit teaches is now just full circle into what I'm trying to teach my boys.
I usually bring up the service aspect of Jesuit, and when I think of how it has been incorporated into my life, and if I'm ever speaking to younger kids, trying to give them advice on how to live and prepare themselves for the future, it's to incorporate that no matter what phase of your life you are in, because it'll seem extraordinary to people that don't necessarily do that. And to you, it'll just eventually become a normal part of your routine. It's like, well, on Thursdays I go to Big Brother, Big Sister, or on Saturdays I go to the soup kitchen, or just something small that's only a couple hours of your life that can have ultimately a huge impact. And so that's really what I've taken away, is just make it a normal thing. And it seems so normal now, but to people that aren't involved in it, are looking from the outside in, they're like, man, how do you fit all these things into a day? But it's like, oh, you just make it happen, and it works.
So when I came out of college, deciding what I wanted to do, I've always been really passionate about financial markets, things of that nature. So when I was 22, decided I want to start kind of my own wealth management practice, which is really hard being young. Nobody wants a young guy to manage their wealth. But you kind of plug along and use your work ethic that I think Jesuit taught me, and you can eventually make it work. And it would have never worked if it wasn't for the Jesuit community, because they helped me and introduced me to people, and I just never would have ever lasted at all if it wasn't for the Jesuit community.
I think a lot of times I don't even realize how much Jesuits played a role in my life. After college, I started teaching math, and I taught for a couple of years, and then I coach at St. Thomas, and then I moved over to St. Rita a couple of years ago. And just volunteering with those kids it's people ask me all the time. That must be a lot of time and effort, and to me, I don't even think about it. I was like, it's honestly more fun for me than I think for the kids, because just getting to see them a couple times a week and watch them grow as players and individuals, it's great. I guess just coaching and volunteering, I don't really think about it, but I guess that all got instilled at Jesuit, and I really enjoy it.
For me, it's probably a couple things. One is the value of education. It's, I guess, one of the core tenets of the Jesuit order is educating. They obviously run high schools all around the country and universities all over the world. So come to school here and go to a Jesuit university, and one of the things that you take with you is the ability to think and think critically and examine important questions about the world. And then the other thing is just being a man for others. It applies across all races and genders and creeds. It's really easy to be a jerk and to be a bad human being. It's not that, it's difficult to really live your life for other people. But when you go through Jesuit, you kind of see it can actually be pretty easy, and there can be a lot of joy and grace that comes from that.
Mine is, I think I've given off a good impression here that I'm a pretty late bloomer. I've been in college now for 14 consecutive years, in case you want to know. I have been in college that whole time. I got done with the first degree, and I was a ski bum. It was great. I worked at the Marriott. I made a lot of money. I'd ski every morning. I'd go to work, and it was a great life. But I was empty. there was an emptiness about what I was doing. You feel like you're wasting that Jesuit education, that Jesuit mission. And I got into healthcare and work as a nurse at Children's. And I got really excited because I got an award last year, and the award was easy because I get to serve every day. Like, I walk away, even the worst days, I'm still just leaving it all on the table there. And we wear our IDs on us, and I have the Jesuit lanyard. And on my darkest day, I can look down and see Jesuit right there and be like, this is not for me. This is for him. And I go about my day. You know, it's a reset because you represent something that's so much more powerful than a building. You know, it's just in that, it was a late bloomer, but it took me a long time. And every day being in school still, I look down at that thing. It's like, I'm going to make a bigger and bigger impact because that drives me.
Really, Jesuit instilled like integrity in me, and I think a perfect example are the lockers. No locks on the lockers. It was just funny because, again, I told that story in college, and no one would believe me. They're like, "What? No locks on your lockers?" Like, we're like, "Yeah," and like nothing ever happened. Like, no issues. I was like, that was one of Jesuit's core principles, just integrity and honesty. But I think on the professional front, I think for me, it's always looking for employers after I finish grad school and college. I was always asking them in their interviews about their core values, what they think about respect and integrity. And I kind of use that as a navigating through searching for employers. And I think it's been great because both companies I work for and the one now, they really try to, their core values is integrity, and they really, all the people in the company show that. And so I feel at home if I'm at Jesuit.
I think what's interesting about all the stories is that the underlining thing is something sticks with you. So one of the things that I remember most is really two things, what both Omar and Kenny said. Omar and I both have kids. I have a son who I would love to come here to have that same experience. And you're trying to instill upon the younger generation the core values, which everyone has touched on tonight, about passing that on. And then the other part of that is the ideology of Jesuit is being men for others. And I think the underlying theme is we all took something from Jesuit, but it's different. They gave it to us.
Sheryl, did you have anything you wanted to say to these guys?
It's been great listening to you. Willing to share a lot of stories.
This is a highlight for us. I appreciate you guys sharing your stories because when we look at this from a 75-year history, everybody's got their unique story from the decades. And while they've all changed, there's a theme. You guys have all shared the theme tonight. Integrity, men for others, education, and brotherhood. And so to have you guys come up here on a Wednesday night from your families because Jesuit still means something that important to you means a lot to us. So we're looking forward to another great 75 years. I appreciate y'all being a part of this. And please know we're always here for you, just like you're always here for Jesuit. So thank you guys so much, and go Rangers.
Thank you.